Hello everyone, my name is Emmanuel or Emanuele because I'm from Italy, but it's a very long name. It's quite hard to pronounce, and it's long also in Italian. And so I thought when people ask me, I just say Emmanuel because even if they never met anyone with that name, they might have met. Surely they've known someone called Daniel, and there are many similar names coming from the Jewish and Christian tradition. Anyway, just started a channel. I made a few videos, 2 or 3 videos about my journey with learning foreign languages, and I thought I might just redo them in English too, and possibly other languages. English is my other best language other than Italian, and possibly even my knowledge of English is even greater than my native Italian because I haven't lived in Italy for since 2003, so 22 years, and things have moved on, they've evolved, and Italian as a language is I feel sorry for it. I feel I'm worried honestly because it's going the way of a minority language with most new words are in English. Sometimes mispronounced English, but it's just the way Italian is going. Anyway, let's leave it there. I wanted to share my experience about learning languages. I've been learning English for 42 years, and I speak English all day long. I read in English mostly. Most of what I read is in English. Most of what I hear is in English. So I spent most of my life learning English, but it wasn't the first language. Well, actually, it was the first language I learned at school. Primary school, we didn't learn much, but we started year 2, I suppose. We call it seconda elementare. So I was 7, and I did it for those 4 years. Then I went to intermediate school. I was picked to do French, which made me heartbroken. I hated it with passion. Luckily, in intermediate school, I had a very good teacher, and she made me not hate it. But I really struggled with the R. Still struggling with that. You can't really speak proper French without the R. Italian R is R. It's not as strong as the Spanish one. It's often the way we pronounce things in Italian is more delicate. We say Roma. We don't say Roma. And as you can probably guess, I speak Spanish too. I went to Spain for a year in 1999. Didn't know any Spanish then, or very little. But it's so close to Italian that it didn't. It took me 3 months to really starting to get it. And my English story with English is different. So because I had to do French, also high school, which I hated. I went back to hating French because my teacher was terrible. I still like the literature, but never go into the language itself. Although it's so close to Italian, it's the closest thing. I think it's closer to Italian than Spanish, because Spanish has got a lot of Arabic words, and in terms of sounds in French is closer to Italian. Portuguese sounds are closer to Italian than Spanish sounds. Spain itself has got a more limited range. Anyway, back to English. So after high school, 5 years of high school, because a few of us had been picked to do French, or were forced to do French. We were offered afternoon classes, English classes, with mother tongue English, teachers subsidized. We were paid very little for it, and And that was great. That was great. We didn't do literature, but I think we were given an exposure to English that was better in quality than most of our fellow students that did English with an Italian teacher. No matter how good they weren't mother tongue. So I did that for 5 years. And the last 2 years, I spent 3 weeks in summer in Ireland, in Dublin, which was something we did from Italy, and it was must have been 1993, 1994. It was a long time ago. And Ireland was a very different country in the 90s. I don't know if you've seen The Commitments, the movie. That was Dublin then. But I loved it. I just loved it. My English made such a leap then. I hadn't passed the English test. We went for a British Council first, I think it was, and I had never been anywhere, so I failed the exam, sadly, which still hurts me because my fellow students, the other guys, the richer kids, they passed it, and I still remember the exam. It was a bit embarrassing, actually. But anyway, after going, I'm sure I would have passed the exam. I would have got the certificate after having spent 3 weeks at a time, twice in Dublin. And my English wasn't great, but I could hear the accent. I could hear the way they pronounced the word bus, which is more like bus, and mum, which is more like mum, and the R was quite strong. And we had a great time. It was my first experience with going abroad, Aer Lingus. And what happened? Next time I went overseas was 1999. I was actually in Toronto, Dublin, what am I saying? Toronto, Ontario, Canada, to go and meet a girl I had met online. And I had a great time with a family exploring Dublin, and I wanted to go and live there. But then what happened was 1999, I was offered to go and study overseas for a year, and I went to Spain, to Madrid, a bit because I tried to go, I don't know, Switzerland, France, England, and there were no spaces available, so I ended up going to Spain. Spain wasn't so much placement, there wasn't so much demand because it had a reputation for being particularly hard, and it's true it was really hard, harder university than the Italian university. But I did go, and I shared a flat with a guy from Portugal and the two other Italian guys. They were studying. There were three of them were studying architecture or studying telecommunications engineering, and I fell in love with Spanish and the accent and the girls, and I found it really incredibly sexy. And that's what I did. I learned Spanish for that year. I didn't do very well with my asignaturas, which is the way they call exams. Also because being harder than Italy was just one chance to pass it, and then another chance to pass in September, which was even harder. And there were lots more exams. There were 6 theoretical exams plus 6 labs, which in Italy we didn't have any labs. So it was really strong. It's really an experience that absorbed me completely, and the language stuck with me to this day, even if it took me longer to graduate, sadly. Actually was a very disappointing for my parents when I came back and said I only passed 2 out of 6 exams. And so it took me longer. But what happened in my brain is that experience of learning Spanish completely wiped out English. My English was pretty good before going to Spain. What happened is that instead of wanting to go and live in Dublin, now I just want, in Toronto, I wanted to go and live in Madrid. And, when you're young, you see things differently. I see things very differently now. I wouldn't go and live in either to Toronto or Spain, Madrid. Although I still love the country, the people, the language. What happens is I met a girl from New Zealand and we started going out, and she was working, came to work. She had actually graduated, my wife, actually, Emma. She had graduated in Italy, found a job in Milan. There was a consulate, New Zealand consulate, or as they say, Kiwi. So I was heartbroken after coming back from Spain because I didn't want to go back and live with my family and live in Italy. And I was really struggling with university. I wasn't happy at university. Those years I found personally really difficult. I got lost, say, and only with the support, the backing of my family, I managed to scrape it through and graduate. But yeah, life is complicated, isn't it? And so I met my wife, Emma, and after 2 years, she didn't like Milan. She hated it. She comes from a rural part of New Zealand. She missed the sea. She would have been happier, I suppose, out of a big city like Milan, a greener place by the lake. We like Lake Como. Anyway, at the end of the 2 years, she finished the contract at the New Zealand consulate, and the jobs she found afterwards were not very good. And she had enough and decided to go back to New Zealand. And I was about to graduate, actually. After I met her, I started, my grades went down and down, lower and lower, because she wanted me to finish. She went back and said, look, in 3 months when you finish, come and to New Zealand, see what you think. She even bought me a ticket. Can you believe it? Anyway, went there, and I was there for 14 years. Until I wasn't happy myself, not in Europe. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be in Europe for various reasons. I couldn't cope anymore, and we took the plunge and moved to England. And that was 8 years ago, with our kids, who were the girl 8 and the boy 10. So we made a big move. It was really, we pissed off a lot of people, her family. Kiwis in general were not very supportive. The older generations, they didn't understand. They say, why are you not moving to Italy? And I had my reasons. Well, first of all, I got a job offer. Thank God. Thank you, FPP Focal Point, for giving me this opportunity. And we moved. I was 40. The age to make that big move at the age of 40. It took a lot of courage, and we were rewarded, being lucky in many ways. But anyway, because I want to talk about languages, obviously when I met Emma, I had to go back, and it was so hard to go back to speaking in English every day when English and Spanish were fighting in my brain. But I didn't lose Spanish. I think if you reach a level that's high enough in the language, you can then switch. I could tell you probably the same things back in Spanish, although I don't know as many words. It doesn't come as natural as English. But so basically, I want to talk about the ability of learning foreign languages if you come both from English or from Italian. And I wanted to say that you can always start. You can always start learning an instrument, learning a language. Doesn't matter if you're young, if you're old. It only matters the amount of time you put into it. And how efficient you are depends on your motivation. And it's easy to get demotivated, especially it's easy if you live in a place. But I believe the ability of speaking a foreign language is within reach, and the hardest one is the first one you learn. And that's about it for now. Sorry, it was quite long.